Good morning, and welcome to the Unity Center of Wesleyan, Oregon. Those of you who are here live and those of you who are watching us on YouTube at some time. My name is Jan Carruthers and I am your service leader, and it's a pleasure to welcome you and bless each one of you today and always. In Unity, we believe that we dwell in spirit, each one. And each of us is here today by divine appointment. The Unity Center is a ministry where people of all ages, backgrounds, and beliefs celebrate the one common spiritual thread that lives in every heart. And if you're discovering Unity or returning to us, we invite you to check out our website, www.worldhealing.org, our homepage. And to learn more about Unity, we invite you to unity.org. It's a wonderful information site filled with deep spiritual resources. Today, I am so excited to welcome our very special guest speaker today, professional speaker, longtime active member of leadership in Mile High Center for Spiritual Living in Denver. I'll be I'll be introducing him in more depth later, but I'd like to welcome Chris Natzke, who is going to open us with centering prayer.
So let's all get comfortable in our seats, and if it feels comfortable, close your eyelids and take a deep breath in and gently let it out. And we're so grateful for our time here together. We know that we come here with open minds and open hearts, and that the Spirit of the living God is within each and every one of us. We know that it speaks to us in many different ways. And today we know it speaks to us through our profound and wonderful imagination. And we know that as we come here, that the service is blessed as we come together in community being here to support one another, to be with one another, and to joyously commune with each other. And I know this service is blessed, and I let it be, and so it is.
Thank you, Chris. Our spiritual reading this morning is from an article written by Reverend Kathy Beasley, who is from the Central Florida Center for Spiritual Living in Winter Park, Florida. Imagination brings possibilities to life. Imagination is the theme for the Unity worldwide this year. And the power of imagination may be an unconventional spiritual practice, but still a potent one. My mind travels back to my second grade art class, and the very first time I remember hearing the word imagination. The invitation to close my eyes, open my mind, and take hold of whatever appeared was life-changing. Putting my imagination to work was the beginning of a lifelong journey of great discovery and quiet escape. As a child, my imagination became a world of possibility, hope, and wholeness. As I grew older, my imagination became my locus of my sense of self and the start of every step forward. I attribute the ability to overcome some of the most challenging moments and situations to the power of imagination as an unfolding principle in my life. Imagination is an invitation, a doorway to dreams for me. It's been the vehicle of creativity and the momentum of exploration. It must have taken me a lifetime for me to learn that imagination was never my escape from something. It was my invitation into so much more. There are so many ways to put the power of imagination to work in our lives, but perhaps the most unconventional use is spiritual practice. There are many things to which we quickly and freely dedicate time and energy. Why not to the rediscovery of imagination active in our lives, homes, ministry, in the world? We have a vision for the Unity Center, and it's been the vision all along. And it includes We hold a vision of contributing to a consciousness of world healing. Our vision is that of healing the world one life at a time, including our own. Our intention is to be a blessing to our community in everything we do. We have 3 affirmations, and Sharon's going to bring up these slides. The first, let's say it aloud: to set it right, see it right. And the second, in this moment, I'm aware of the presence of God flowing through me, energizing and renewing all areas of my life. I use my imagination, the creative power of spirit, to think about what I wish to see in my life. And the third, my imagination brings possibilities to life. I am so excited to introduce to you our guest speaker before the song that we're going to play. And that is Chris Natzke, lives in Lakewood, Aurora, California. He's Colorado rather. He's an 8th degree black belt, master instructor, and former United States National Taekwondo champion. Chris will be providing for us practical and spiritual strategies for accessing our inner champion, our deepest connection with spirit. As a life leadership coach, national keynote speaker, and Amazon #1 best-selling author, he transforms lives through his unique brand of black belt leadership. And his title is going to be Imagining the Champion Within: My Journey, Life's Journey in Martial Arts and New Thought. Before he speaks, we have a song, Unopened Gifts by Stogood.
Dreamed he went to heaven, and he walked right up to God. He said, "Father, please forgive me, but I've always thought it odd. How come I have so little when others have much more?" God took him to a special room behind a golden door. He said, "Here are all your treasures. You have no need for lack. They've been here for you all along. You only had to ask. 'Cause it's all for you. I give you dreams and wishes, and they do come true. The moment you feel worthy, then the clouds will lift, and you'll see your says to his mother, "I don't know why I'm here. It's not easy being me, and everybody thinks I'm weird." She says, "Don't you know you're perfect, just the way you are?" She smiles at him and gently lays her hand upon his heart. "Here are all your treasures, God-given and unique. The world will open up to you if only you believe that it's all for you. You're given dreams and wishes, and they do come true. The moment you feel worthy, then the clouds will lift, and you'll see your unopened gifts.
What a beautiful song. And thank you, Jan, so much for inviting me to come and speak this morning. I have to admit, I'm guessing that some of you heard my introduction and said, "Oh my gosh, what's this 8th-degree black belt going to talk about this morning? Is there going to be a karate lesson at 10:40 in the morning?" But what I want to share with you today is how these two probably most important aspects of my life, both martial arts and New Thought, have helped transform me, and the lessons that I've learned and gleaned throughout that time, and those that I want to share with you, because I really think there's a direct connection in terms of both of those practices and the impact they've had on my life. So it's probably best for me to give you a little bit of my history. I started my martial art training back in 1973. I was a short little chubby kid. I was enamored with a TV show that some of you more seasoned congregants might remember called Kung Fu. It was a Shaolin monk, Huai Chain Kane, who was walking across the American desert. He'd go into his the little cow town. The bad guys would try to beat him up, and he'd take care of him using his Kung Fu. And when you're 10 years old, it's the coolest thing you've ever seen on the planet. And I literally begged my mom to let me go to my first class. And I remember it like it was yesterday. These people with these amazingly powerful moves. And I literally felt like I came home. And about 3 years after that, I meet a man that would change my life forever. In fact, he's still my instructor to this day. His name is Grandmaster J.K. Lee. Now, Grandmaster Lee had recently moved from South Korea to Milwaukee. He had hardly a dime in his pocket. He could hardly speak English, but he had this burning desire to transform lives through martial arts. And one of the first times I was in his class, I was seated in the corner of the room. My legs were spread wide. I was stretching out, getting ready for the day's training. And that's when it happened. He walked onto the mat like he always did, with this amazing power, this amazing presence. And he began surveying all the students on the mat. And pretty soon I realized he's staring directly at me. And before I could move a muscle, he had come over and sat down in front of me. And he put his right foot on the inside of one leg, his left foot on the inside of the other. He grabbed the ends of my belt, and with one push-pull, he split me out to 180 degrees. Yes, Jan, that's the exact face I was making. And I learned two very important life lessons that morning. Number one is anyone, yes, anyone on this planet can do the splits one time. But the other thing I learned is when he looked at me deeply in the eyes and he said to me in his broken English, he said, "I will make you a champion. I will make you a champion." Now, that was an incredibly profound time in my life. And I've had several, of course, as we all have. But the other time that I remember having that same feeling is when I walked into to Mile High Church. And I felt this deep connection and the message of Dr. Roger Teal. And it's the same way I felt like I came home. And I left that experience as well, knowing that I was changed. And so now what is so unique is I get to combine those two aspects of my life in teaching martial arts, but also in communicating with New Thought and the science of mind and spirit in my own life, not only in what I do in my own personal life, but in my professional work. And that's what I want to talk with you about today. You see, we have a saying in martial arts is that a champion doesn't need to be told what to do. They just need to be reminded. And oftentimes we think about that reminding in terms of recollection. And then in our teachings, we think about getting all the other stuff out of the way so we can truly remember who we are. The way I like to think of it is we can in an instant rechange, or we can remind ourselves or change our mind to change our perception. And when we do that, that's when we can access the champion within. So that's what I want to chat about with you this morning. And so the first thing I want to share with you is what I call having a purposeful vision. You see, a vision is something which comes from that imagination that we're talking about this morning, right? And a vision for us is what gets me up in the morning, right? It's what gets us excited about living life, because when we lean into that vision, when we lean into that imaginative aspect of ourselves, we see all the possibilities that lie before us. And when we focus on the positive things in our lives that support that vision, the things that support us, that keep us going, that make us feel empowered, we start seeing more of those things in our world reality. Would you agree? But if we focus on just the challenges, the obstacles to that, we'll start seeing more of those as well. Now, it doesn't mean that we ignore the obstacles. What it means is we see them for what they are. They're a means for us to be able to move through in our path, maybe redirect at times, but also keep us on focus. Now, I know we've all experienced that, and it's interesting that sometimes we can experience it right where we're at and not even understand it. In fact, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to play a little game with me. I'm assuming many of you are listening to this from home in a very familiar surrounding. And what I'd like you to do is look around the room right now, wherever you're at, and notice all the things that you see that are the color blue. So it could be blue pants, it could be blue drapes, and a blue water container. Just notice all the things you see that are the color blue. All right, now play with me on this. Close your eyes. And in your mind's eye, notice all the things that you saw that were the color green. Okay, open your eyes. Talk's going to be better with your eyes open. But what did you see? My sense is you didn't see, you had a difficulty finding those green things because you were so focused on blue. You see, and when we focus our intention and attention, that's what we start to see in our lives. I don't know about you, but I know that there are times in my life when I've wanted a new car, a new automobile. And have you noticed that when you get really clear on the make and the model of what that vehicle is going to be, the color, you start seeing more of those on the road? And if you don't see them on the road, you see them, on the internet, you see them in TV ads and magazine articles, et cetera, et cetera. What that is called the reticular activating system. It's that part of our brain that actually gravitates to exactly where we want to put our focus. So when we have that connection with our imagination and we focus on that vision, we start seeing opportunities in our lives for it to come to fruition. The first time I can remember this really coming present in my life was my senior year of college. I was a football player at Northwestern University, go Cats, and I'd been married between my junior and senior year of college. And this one day I came home to see my new bride, and she gave me a message that would change our lives forever. When she said, "Guess what? We're going to be parents." And I did what any 21-year-old would do. I said, "Yes, I'm going to be a dad," followed very closely by, "Oh my God, I'm going to be a dad." And when I left the house that day, what do you think I saw everywhere? I know what many of you are thinking. You think I saw babies all over the streets, but that wasn't it. I saw pregnant ladies. They were waddling all over the place. It was like a spaceship came down and deposited them. They were going to take over the planet, but they were always there before. I wasn't ready to see them. So my question for you is as you are getting in touch with your imagination this month and you're allowing that to come through to you, where are you placing your focus in order for that to come and expand more and greater ways in your own life? You see, the other thing around that is that outer reflection, it begins inside of us. It begins inside of us. And a long time ago, I had one of my teachers tell me, he said that most of us in life live our lives a little backwards. I thought that was an interesting comment. He said, most of us live our lives from a perspective of have, do, be, have, do, be. When I have enough money, then I'll do the things I want to do and I'll be happy. When I have more time, then I'll do the things I told my kids or my spouse or my, my aunts and my uncles and whoever that is, and I'll be a better son, daughter, grandfather, whatever. Or when I have more clients, then I'll do the expansion of my business and I'll be successful. And while these things on the outside are very important, what my teacher told me is that it all originates on the inside. It doesn't necessarily come to us, it comes through us based on the container that we make available. And what he said is the people that really are living life to the fullest, that are experiencing the prosperity, the success, and the outpouring of the imagination, they turn those words around. They look at life from a perspective of be, do, have. Be, do, have. If you want more consciousness, if you want more collaboration, if you want more outpouring of prosperity, start being that way. Then do the things that support that way of being, and then you can have what you want. So my question for you is as you're focusing on your imagination this month, what way are you allowing it to be recepted into you by your way of being? Because when we start from that perspective, it can change our lives. Because once again, things don't come to us, they come through us. Okay, let's talk about the next thing I want to share. And that has to do with what I call conscious persistence. Conscious persistence. One of the things that I know in my own life, and I learned very, very deeply in martial arts, was this idea of continuing to show up and continuing to be at my best. That's how I became a black belt. That's how I became a champion. But what I found as I really started to look at this, not only in my own life, but also in the clients that I serve, is many of us are very, very consistent. We show up each and every time, but we're not always conscious about it. And if you think I'm wrong, think about the last time you left a meeting, you drove 40 minutes home, you started driving up your driveway, and you had no idea how you got there. We do things all the times in our lives that we're very persistent about, but we're not very conscious. When I think about my martial art background and my many years of teaching, I've had about 1,200 students that have made it to black belt. But what's so interesting, of those 1,200 students, I can think of only two that when I saw them for the very first time, they had all the skills necessary to be a black belt. They had focus, concentration, flexibility, strength, power, explosiveness. They had all those attributes, only two. Now, they eventually got their black belt, but there were another approximate 1,198 that didn't have those skills. They didn't have those innate things within them. They had to develop them through persistence. In fact, we have a saying in martial arts is that a black belt is a white belt that never quit. A black belt is a white belt that never quit. And I ask you to, think about your own life. Where have there been times when you have had challenge, but the reason that you were able to move through it is that you showed great persistence. And I would also say that the times in your life that you're most likely most proud of are the times when you did have to go through struggle. You did have to go through challenge, but you came out of it on the other side. Now, how does that translate to our own spiritual world? Well, I think you'll agree with me is that things in the spiritual realm, they can, but they oftentimes don't happen in an instant. They can, but they often don't. They come from continued and consistent practice. So what I'd like to do right now is share with you, in this past February, I published my second book called Breaking Through. And in it, I shared what I call 6 key pieces of information, what I call the 6 M's of morning mastery. And I'm going to share those with you now because I really think they play to exactly what we're talking about. And if you haven't taken notes up until now, this might be a good time. You might want to grab a pen and a paper and take these down. So this is a foundation, a spiritual practice that I do each and every day, and I encourage my clients to do it as well. And what I came to find is that when we look at the days that we live into, and if we get really objective and we get honest with ourselves, there are 2 times of the day when we have the greatest amount of control that we can really make an impact, particularly in our spiritual lives. And that's generally in the morning and then right before we go to bed. I mean, we can have the best laid plans in the middle of the day, and then all of a sudden something happens, and all of a sudden we're off course. And when we off-put those practices that support us till later in the day, there's oftentimes a good chance that we're not going to get to them. So this is how I start each and every day. And as I share these with you, I'd ask you to take a look at them and see if there's 1, 2, or maybe all 6 you can incorporate in your own life, and some you may already be doing. But here are the 6 M's. The first is one I know that is very much taught within the Unity tradition and New Thought, and that's simply meditation. And that's taking some time to silence ourselves. And it's often been said is when we pray, we talk to God, but when we meditate, we listen to God. And how often, with all the distractions that we have in our lives, the cell phones, the internet, the televisions, the phone calls, et cetera, do we really take time to just allow our mind to settle and just allow the thoughts and that imagination that we're talking about to literally come through? As we create the space inside of our own minds and our own hearts, then it allows spirit to talk to us, and then allows spirit's work to move through us. The next is mind treatment, affirmative prayer, right? Taking time to affirmatively state what we want to have created in our lives. So many times, and I'm sure we've heard it as well, is we get in this aspect of worry. And I don't know about you, but I've heard oftentimes that worry is a negative prayer. But in our teaching, what we do is we embrace the affirmative. We embrace those affirmative thoughts of what we want to create, knowing that this or even something better can happen in our lives. But taking the time to set that through that affirmative mind treatment. Number 3 is mental imaging. As an athlete, one of the things that I learned early on is that the differentiation between myself and when I was competing in Taekwondo on a national level, the difference between us from a physical standpoint was oftentimes very, very minute. But where the difference is where we were able to control our minds. And I did that mostly through visualization. Many times when I was in the ring and in a match, the things that I was doing, the points that I was scoring, are things that I did much earlier in my own mind as I imagined those. And I had a teacher tell me one time. He said, "Chris, if you're going to fantasize, you might as well win." But how many times in our lives do we default to the worry? Do we default to the things that are going to happen that we don't want to have happen? Now, it doesn't mean that we don't plan, and it doesn't mean that we're not ready for those things. But what it means is that we focus on where we want to go. In addition to that, what I also found as an athlete is it wasn't just focusing on the end result, and that was also important, but it was also focusing on the process. How was I going to show up in my training? How are we going to show up in our relationships? How do we show up in our work each and every day? What do we do to make that happen? Number 4 is movement. Movement. Now, I could have put exercise here, but I know that sometimes that's a word that isn't taken too well in our society. But I want you to consider this. Our bodies were designed to move. And it doesn't mean taking a 2-hour exercise class or hiking up, a 14er as we have here in Colorado. What it means is just consistently moving our bodies. There are places on this planet called blue zones. These are places where they find that people routinely live into their 90s and into their 100s. Now, there are a lot of factors that they find that are brought to this. They live very much within a community of their family and their society, which supports them. They also eat very clean diets, and they also still have a purpose in their life. But the one thing that they do consistently is they move. They move each and every day. So where do you have an opportunity to do that in your life? Number 5 is motivation. Now, what I mean by that is, where are you having maybe an outside source of an author through books, through spiritual readings, through videotapes, through audio tapes, where you can, again, mold and shape your mind and help support you in a positive way so that it's setting the foundation for that day. There's one of my favorite books that I've read over the last year by a man named Admiral Bill McRaven, and it's simply entitled "Make Your Bed." Make your bed. And what he speaks about is, if you're going to do anything and create perfect days, the first thing you start with is make your bed, because at least you've done one thing good to begin your day. But I see the same thing as I was motivated by that talk, I can be motivated by other things throughout the day. So where is your source for doing that? And then finally, it's memoirs. And what I mean by memoirs is simply scribing or taking time to journal. Where are you placing your time so that you can ask the questions that you want answered? Because we know they're already inside of us. We know that when we access that imagination, when we access that source, that it lives inside each and every one of us, that the answers are already there. And are you taking time to really access those so you can have the impact that you want in your life? So those are my 6 M's. So, hopefully you can look at these and say, man, I think that one works well, or I'm already doing that, or maybe I could enhance my way of being in that one. And that's hopefully my gift for you as we move through this, because I know that when we're consistent in these practices, what happens is great things start to unfold for us. So now let's wrap up with the last idea that I want to share with you. And that's what I called having inspired action. Inspired action. All of the things that I'm sharing with you today, we may be nodding our heads and saying, I've heard that before. That sounds like a great idea, but they don't mean anything unless we take action. And again, I had another wise teacher tell me one time is that God meets us at the point of action. When we begin to take those steps, that's when the confluence comes together in order to make things begin to transform and appear and manifest in our world. But I've often also heard it said that there's 3 types of people in this world. There's those that make things happen. There's those that watch things happen. And then there's people that look around and say, what just happened, right? So who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up being in your world? Now, we all know that taking that action is such an important aspect of who we can become and doing that. But oftentimes we hold back. And why do we hold back? Well, at its very root, it's fear, right? It's fear of so many things. It's fear of getting uncomfortable. It's fear of making mistakes. It's fear of looking foolish. And yes, it can oftentimes be our fear of actually being successful. Because that one part of our mind might say, man, if I actually get what I actually want, how will that change my life? It may be what I'm saying I want, but it also makes me uncomfortable because I know some things are going to have to change. But the fact of the matter is that when we start to lean into it and we start to look at those worries and those fears that may be holding us back, we can see them for what we are. They're nothing more than a thought, and they're nothing more than something that can be dissolved when we shine the light on it. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a household where both of my parents were worriers. And I always ask people the question, are you a worrier? And they kind of shake their head. I said, not a warrior, but a worrier, right? A worrier. And what I found is so much of my life got impacted by those small thoughts that kept coming up that was getting me off track. Am I going to look bad? Am I going to look foolish? Am I going to make a mistake, et cetera, et cetera? And then I was exposed to this study that I want to share with you now. It was done by a doctor named Dr. Robert Leahy, and it was called The Worry Cure. It was actually contained in a book by the same name. And what Dr. Leahy did is he took a number of subjects and he had them all come together. And he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to list in detail all the things you're worried about occurring in your life in the next 30 days. All the things you're worried about happening in your life over the next 30 days, problems with finances, relationship, health, career, as great a detail as you can, write them all down. And then he said, turn those papers into me and now go live your life for the next 30 days. He encouraged them, don't make any major changes during this time. Just live your regular life and then come back in about 32, 33 days. Well, this is what happened. When those subjects came back and they turned in their reports, this is what they found. What they found is that 85% of the things they worried about never happened. They never happened. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, though. 15% did, right? Some of you even got the calculator out to figure that out. But here's what they found out about those 15%. What they found is that of those 15%, 79% of that 15% either A, happened and it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be, or the subject reported back they actually were happy it did because they learned and grew from them. So what that means when you bring that all down is that 97% of the things that we worry about either never happen or when they do, they actually serve us. So my question for you is this: how will you live your life differently now that you know this to be true? What conversations will you have? What steps will you take? What risks will you take? Where will you let your imagination allow you to flow in life? Because we know in our teaching is that worry is actually a negative prayer. Where can we let go of those worries and really step into our power? Now, what that oftentimes does, though, is it requires us to get out of a comfort zone. Now, as a coach, I talk to my clients about comfort zones all the time. And, quite honestly, I think comfort zones can get a bad rap. After a long day when I want to sit in my recliner and watch Sports Center, that's kind of a comfort zone for me. But where we get into trouble is where we pitch a tent there or we build a 4-bedroom home, right? We don't want to stay in that comfort zone. We want to go there to rest and recharge, but then allow ourselves to move into a more expansive way of being. But what most of us do is this, and I've been very guilty of this in my life, is that we decide we want to get out of that comfort zone and we're going to take massive action. Now, massive action isn't necessarily bad, but what many of us do is we take such steps outside of our comfort zone. Like if we've been sedentary for a while, now we're going to go to the gym and exercise, but we're going to do it for 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's so uncomfortable for us that it literally gets us to what I call the panic zone. It's so uncomfortable, we can't maintain it. And oftentimes we literally snap back to even levels that were lower from our old comfort zone. But what I'm advocating is as we're moving forward and allowing that imagination to move through us, is that we go to what's called the stretch zone. The stretch zone is when we're committed that each and every day we're going to take steps just to make ourselves a little bit better than before, to deepen our spiritual practices a little bit more, to lean into our relationships a little bit more, to expand our businesses just a little bit more. And think about this: if we did this in just 1%, what if you just committed yourself to be 1% better than you were the day before, and you did that over the course of a year? What might happen? Well, I'm going to tell you. See, it compounds. These good habits and these practices that we do from a spiritual standpoint, they don't add up, they literally compound. Because if we got better just 1% each and every day over the course of the year, after 1 year, we'd be 37 times better than when we started. Now, that sounds pretty impactful, but what would happen if we did that for 2 years? Well, some of you might have done the quick math and said, well, I'll be 74 times better, but that's not the case. You see, again, good habits, good practices don't add up, they compound, just like interest in the bank. And if we did that and we maintained a 1% increase in our ability to deepen, after 2 years, we'd be 1,400 times better. And what if we did that for 5 years? 5 years, wait for it, it's 76 million times better. So the idea there is what can you commit to in your life, in your spiritual practice, in your relationships, in your health and wellness, in your mind and your imagination? Where could you commit to just be 1% better each and every day? And what would the impact be if you took that one action step? So that's my message for you today, my friends. It's my hope that when you think about this, when you think about your imagination and you think about how that vision can come through you, that you allow yourself the time for it to come into full fruition into your life, that you give yourself the time to let it be there, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it scares you, it allows it to come forward. And then what happens is you have a consistent practice that you utilize to access that. And then on the earthly plane is that you take the action, you take the steps necessary to make that become an integral part of your life. Because as we've said, God will meet us at the point of action. So let's pray. So, dear Divine Spirit, Mother, Father, God, our friend, our support, the life that breathes in and out of each and every one of us, we know that we are all one with you and that we live, move, and have our being through you. We know that our imagination is the way that you speak to us. It opens our mind, it opens our heart. And we know today that we allow this to flow through us. We allow this to be an integral part of us. We allow this to be the way that you express through us. And as a result of that, we know that we show up as being the most whole and complete people that we can be, to serve in the greatest ways that we can. And for this, we are so thankful. We have such a grateful heart, knowing that we become vessels for your power, your presence on this earth. And we say, thank you, thank you, thank you, Spirit. And with this, we let it go as we know it is so. And so it is. Amen.
Look into a child's eyes. Tell me what you see. Reflections of
The New Thought movement is so gifted from the musicians that we have and the songs that they've written. That was lovely. Chris, thank you so much for a great message, lively, clear, helpful, inspiring. I'm going to think about the 1% solution every day and inspired action. Wonderful. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
We have an intention as we celebrate our 31st year. This is the time when we're looking at how we appreciate the abundance of our lives and the extraordinary gift that the Unity Center has been for us. And we remember as we complete something that is well loved and well used, we are planting the seed for wondrous things to come. So when we think about giving, we know that we're giving to our spiritual source. We are giving to that which inspires us. So if Sharon, if you will bring up that our spirit-led affirmation, spirit-led, we are co-creating a vibrant, inclusive community, welcoming and supporting everyone on their spiritual journey. You know that every gift is gratefully received through June for the Unity Center completion activities, and all our additional, whatever resources remain, will go on to Unity for the expansion of the Unity movement. So let's say together our offering prayer. God's love in me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. You know, it's such a vibrant time right now. We have announcements coming up. No matter what's happening, there's always something going on. The update for the closing, our final service will be in a couple of weeks. But we're here on live every Sunday morning through June 27th. And there are activities in July. Several key Unity activities will continue: Food from the Heart, Women's Circle, Men's Group, key annual events. So stay connected. Today's a big day, and that is we have Cindy Simmons' celebration of life at 2:00 at the Unity Center. Rain or shine, I'm sure that it will be beautiful. Reverend Victoria Echemendi is leading that service. Her Unity friends are invited. For those of you who don't know, Cindy Simmons was our wonderful 96-year-old sweet, sweet woman who's been a member for many, many years. On Tuesday, it's a special women's circle, and we'll be meeting live in person, really real, for a lasagna dinner with a potluck for beverages and side dishes. By the way, just I'm getting a question. Do I know when the service is? The service for Cindy is at 2:00. So the women's circle will be at 5:30, which is earlier than usual. And, you know, please plan to come. And who doesn't love lasagna? But even more than that, please RSVP to Olivia West so she knows to plan how many. It is going to be a very special program, and it's going to be engaging and set up to create spiritual connection and kinship. So plan to be there for that. Food from the Heart is this coming Friday, June 18th. If you haven't signed up for what you're going to bring, please contact Mary Troxel to get any gaps in the menu. Our completion celebration will be on July 18th. Mark your calendars, more details to come. Wonderful music, Reverend Victoria, a number of other people, and it's a time for us to not only reminisce, but to really hold the value and to share and celebrate the value that the Unity Center has been in our lives. And if you'd like to participate, volunteer for that, we would love the additional participation. Thanks to Marilee Payne and Olivia West and Nancy Lilly for helping on inventorying our possessions. And if there's something that you would like to possibly check on out of the office. Check for that. Our office will be operating at least through July, so those things will be available after then. Next 2 Sundays, wonderful, wonderful speakers. Reverend Kathy Harwood Long, Unity Minister, longtime friend of our center, and Reverend Victoria will be speaking on Father's Day, which is also a big day because it's the beginning of summer, or nearly the beginning of summer. And our final service will be on Sunday, June 27th, with Reverend Christine Green, Reverend Kathleen Varigan, some very special programming, and it may be a little longer. So be sure and put those on your calendar. As they say, be there or be square. So please stay connected, read the e-news every Thursday so that you're up to date. If you want to participate in something, this is a very vibrant time, very vibrant time. Now, personally, if any of you wish spiritual healing, additional spiritual support, being connected even deeper, we recommend Unity, Silent Unity. It's celebrating 125 years at Unity Village. This was a creation of Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. Has been continuing for 125 years. Millions and millions of spoken and written prayers and prayer letters. So if you would turn with me now, coming back again to our center, to stay centered, no matter what. We have unity affirmations, and let's say them together aloud at home. Let them touch our hearts. So, inner peace. Peace is my center. I'm calm and serene. I shine the light of divine wisdom from within to guide my every step. My body is a vessel of life and energy. The rich blessings of divine abundance flow to me and through me. I am prosperous. And I bless the world with thoughts of unity and harmony. So, folks, this week I invite you to reflect on the parts of Chris's message that touched you and spend some time to really explore and play with the power of imagination in your life. Perhaps it's time to put some intention into your daydreams. Daydreams are powerful. So with our willingness to trust, we'll see, hear, and recognize the guidance we receive, and even have a little fun. So we have a very fun, very short video from Unity to reinforce and re-inspire us to remember the power of vision and imagination, to create our future, energize our present, and transform our lives. And Sharon's going to bring that up. There's so many great videos and so many great resources, not only on unity.org, but on dailyword.org. I just invite you to use the remarkable resources that we have. So as we move to complete our service together, we will symbolically blow at our candles. And I would like to invite you to imagine for me, with me, before we blow these, before we say this. First, imagine that you are a flower candle. Each of us is a flower candle sent out with love to float and to flow and to light the night, to light the lives of others. And eventually, as we float, our candle burns down and is transformed into the pure energy of spirit. And we know the light never goes out because we are the light. And together, let's say the prayer of transformation. Transformation is a remarkable thing. Remember, it's not just change, it is transformation. Ready? The light of God is in us. The love of God moves through us. The power of God transforms us. The presence of God is who we are. Wherever we go, God is, and all is well. So, my friends, this week, let Spirit light your way. Thanks so much to Unity Friends near and far for your support, for your participation. And we invite you to join us and stay after on this Zoom link for our community time, for lively conversation and connections, an opportunity to talk with Chris Natzke. And you may not know, but he is a big deal in the world as well as in our world. So especially if you're new, it's never too late for any of us to make new friends. Please join us again here all the way through June. Find our services with remarkable speakers all the way since March 2020 on YouTube under West Lynn Unity Center. Have a loving weekend, everyone. Thank you for being with us.